All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are looking at lesson 5.2 proportions. Now, some of the great news is we've already done some of this work, especially on the IXL. It may not have looked exactly the same, but we were doing similar information, kind of looking for those. Oh, look at right in there, objective. Determine whether two ratios form a proportion using equivalent ratios and the cross product property. And if you remember, we did some equivalent ratios on the IXL, so you already have some skills ready for that. We're just going to put it together in what it looks like, what is called a proportion, which means they're equal to each other. One of the ways, especially to hopefully find an unknown, meaning what is the missing part of the proportion or missing part of the ratio, is to use your cross product property. All right, let's jump right into it, and then homework time. All right, so your proportion again is an equation stating that two ratios are equal. So for example, instead of a 1 there, it could be an x, therefore you would have to solve for the unknown. It would come out to be a 1. Now we know that these are equal because 3 over 6 can definitely reduce to 1/2, and that would be 1/2 is equal to 1/2. And that's exactly what we were talking about on the IXL. It just wasn't formatted as an equation. Proportional. Two quantities that form a proportion. That's kind of silly. But that's what we're going to do right here. We're going to test to see if these form a proportion, which means they would be proportional. So we would take each ratio and we would reduce them to see if they're essentially equal to each other. If they're equal to each other, then that is our proportion. So exactly like what we did on IXL, 6 over 4 reduces, because we divide by 2, and it gives us 3/2. So our goal is the same thing to see if 8 over 12 can give us 3/2. 8 over 12 can divide by 4, and that gives us 2/3. Ooh, since they are not the same, they are not equal to each other, we could not say they're proportional. Instead of just saying no, maybe not proportional might be a little bit better, or it does not form a proportion. And again, that's because they are not equivalent. So on IXL, you didn't select that as an answer because they were not equivalent. Remember, you had like 3 choices, 1, sometimes 2 answers when they were equivalent, meaning just reduce them to see if they equal each other. All right, 10 over 18 and 45 over 81. We're going to reduce it again, simplify it, dividing by 2. Now remember, if I'm going a little fast, you can pause it, back it up. All right, so our goal is to see if our second ratio gives us 5 over 9, and therefore it would perform, or it would form a proportion. 45 and 81 can both be divided by 9. And what do you know? It does give me 5 over 9. So therefore, since they are equivalent, those two ratios form a proportion. Again, I don't really like the yes. I would personally say that they are proportional because they form a proportion. Tell whether x and y are proportional. Now, normally in 8th grade, we don't set it up like this, but for right now, I think it might be okay. So really we've got 4 problems. And if you remember, we did a problem somewhat like this where we had 3 that we had to look at. Actually, there was 4 of them, and we noticed that they all became the same. So the same thing here. We want to see if we can simplify them. So 1/2 over 3. Well, we really know that's 1/2 divided by 3, which is really 1/2 multiplied by 1/3. Again, that was from chapter 2, I believe. So, for our first scenario, which would be this one right here, we get a ratio of 1 over 6. Now, we're going to see if all the other ones will give us 1 over 6 as well. Now, B, that's kind of basic, right? It's already 1 over 6. So those match up. We're going to keep working on there. So for the next one, we got 3/2 divided by 9. So it's actually the same setup as A. So 3/2 divided by 9 over 1, excuse me, which is really 3 halves multiplied by 1 over 9. And then we look for cross canceling. So the 3 and the 9s can cross cancel. And what do you know? It does give me 1 over 6. So I've got 1, 2, 3. So far looks good. I need to check my last one. 2 over 12. Yeah, that does reduce to 1 over 6. So everything works out. All the 4 scenarios work out. Therefore, x and y are proportional. They all have to work. Look at those little clouds. That's so nice. The ratios are equivalent. Therefore, x and y are proportional. Very nice. Again, good practice with some of our fraction skills that we've done back in Chapter 2. We still want to keep those skills ready throughout junior high and high school. All right, let's go ahead and do the exact same thing. If you notice this time, it's a horizontal chart as opposed to a vertical chart. You're just going to see both forms a lot in 8th grade and in high school. So x and y are proportional, same type of question. So scenario A, we have it as 1 over 12, which cannot reduce. Scenario B, 2 over 24, gives me 1 over 12. Looking good so far. Scenario C, 4 over 48. Yeah, 1 over 12. Remember, you could always pause the video to catch up if you need to. All right, last one. We're going to go ahead and look at it. 6 over 72. So if you didn't know, they can both be divided by 6. Hey, look at that. All 4 are good. So x and y are proportional. Again, all 4 have to work. There might be only 3 scenarios. There might be 5 or 6. You're just going to use the numbers that are given to you, and they have to all come out to the equivalent ratio, which once again means, can I simplify them and get the same numbers? All right, one more like this, and then we'll move on to a few more. All right, scenario A, half divided by 4. Half divided by 4 over 1. Or half multiplied by 1/4. So scenario A gives me 1 over 8. Scenario B, well, 1 over 8. Scenario C, 3 halves divided by 12. Or divided by 12 over 1. So again, we're going to practice keep, change, reciprocal. That was the format that we talked about back in Chapter 2. So I'm going to keep the first fraction, 3 over 2. Multiply, so I'm going to change division to multiplication. Excuse me, and do the reciprocal. So I look for cross canceling, 1 and 4, which does give me 1 over 8. So all 3 are looking really good, but some of you might have noticed on scenario D, 2 divided by 18 really becomes 1 over 9. So that 4th scenario, 1 over 9, messes up the whole idea of equivalent ratios. So even though you have 3, we don't have the 4th. So not proportional. All right, the cross product idea. I really like cross product. It's called sometimes cross multiplying. We're going to go ahead and do some multiplying diagonally. It says, in proportions, multiply the terms that are diagonally across from each other. Cross products of a proportion are equal. So sometimes, again, it's finding that unknown that would give you equivalent ratios. So for this one, you can use a color coding. You can use arrows. That highlighter might be really good. Again, the 2 is at the numerator, and its partner or friend, again, is at the denominator. So diagonally, that's what it means diagonally. 3 and 4. So obviously 12 equals 12, so that is a proportional setup. All right, here we go. Word problem. You swim your first laps in 2.4 minutes. You complete 16 laps in 12 minutes. Is the number of laps proportional to your time? Meaning, did you slow down at all? Because again, you want to try and keep it steady. Don't want to go really fast and then really slow. Nice and steady. Okay, so our scenario, our laps divided by our time. So from our first sentence, it's 4 laps in 2.4 minutes. And it wants us to check to see if they're equal, question mark there, in completing 16 laps in 12 minutes. So is the number of laps proportional to your time? So what we're going to do is set up our multiplication. So I'm going to go ahead and do my diagonal again. So 4 and 12. You can use a highlighter again if you want to do that. You can circle it. You can draw an arrow. And then we're going to go ahead and multiply 2.4 by 16. And want to see if they are equal or equivalent. So we know 4 times 12 is 48. And 2.4 by 16, ooh, so look at that. That's not proportional, which means probably the last half, meaning like maybe the last 8 laps of swimming, the person or you probably slowed down. They are not equal to each other. So it's not proportional. If we got 48 equals 48, then yes, that would be proportional, which means they were swimming steadily the whole 16 laps. You read the first 20 pages of a book in 25 minutes. You read 36 pages in 45 minutes. Is the number of pages you read proportional to your time? Meaning, are you still just constantly reading, or did you get distracted? Did you get up and have a snack? Something like that. So let's go ahead and set it up. Again, it's talking about the pages per minute. Actually, you know what? We're not doing the unit rate. We're not saying per minute. We're just trying to figure out if they are proportional. So that's one way you can do it to see if you get it down to the unit rate and compare it. But this one, it's a little bit easier because, again, we just have to do some basic multiplication. So 20 times 45, or 45 times 2, put the additional 0 at the back. So that would give us 900. But is that going to be the same value if you do 25 times 36? Meaning if you have 36 quarters, you can think about it that way, or you can just do straight up multiplication. Again, we want to see if they are equal to each other or equivalent. If they are, then it is a proportional relationship. 900 is equal to, 900. Very, very nice. So that means the person, you, were reading steadily. Just had a nice, comfy chair, and you were reading nice and neat. Good book. Hey, that's it. Oh, so I must be thinking about the next section, because the next section is going to be solving for the unknown. So it means this section is even easier because we've already done the pre-work at the beginning examples. Remember, reducing them and seeing if they're equivalent, seeing if they're proportional. This one here, you got to be able to convert a word problem into a proportion and then check to see if they are equivalent. 900 equals 900. Excellent. All right, go ahead and be awesome on your homework.